think it's fine.
Sweet. I just started recording just so you guys know before I forget.
Cool.
Perfect. But so yeah, I'm just waiting to hear back from that. So we'll see. And but I think all of my workshop stuff is ready to go. And so after this, we start working like on our resume and different things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be exciting.
Great. Who knows what I'm even going to put on my resume? I hate doing resumes. I'm like, I haven't worked a job for like 10 years. Just I'm a stay-at-home mom. That's fabulous.
Or I feel like all the things I have are totally irrelevant to anything professional. I don't know.
I know. That's
Like
how I feel.
I can make cakes and that's it.
That's good. That shows patience and determination. That's what you put
Oh.
on your
Do that.
You're good at that. I need to remember that.
yeah, you
Okay,
just gotta work it.
I have a question. So it comes from, okay, so the program evaluation. I had to resubmit my assessment summary or assessment plan. And I think it's because I kind of missed the very first question, which was, and it had to do with our reading, where it's talking about like how your program should have a vision and then it should have goals, and then you ask specific questions to evaluate whether or not like the people who attended met those goals. But so I was just wondering, like, for both of your workshops, what's like your overall vision? Because I just had a hard time like coming up with something specific enough. Or, well, I guess I was just thinking like too broad, because mine is about marriage and money. So I was like, vision is to improve marriages. But then I was like, that sounds way too broad. And so then I tried to make it more specific, but then it just got too specific. So I was wondering what your guys' overall vision was.
Well, like for your vision, if it's about marriage and money, then you could have something be like the overall goal is to have each family be able to set up a budget and be able to agree upon finances and where finances are going to be allocated. So you could like say something like that. And so mine is on stress. My like is workshop is like how to cope with stress. And so my vision was that people will be able to go away from the workshop and have at least 5 coping mechanisms for physical and emotional stress that they can turn to and be ready to apply to their daily lives, is like basically kind of what my vision was.
Yeah, and mine was about effective communication. So mine was like teaching couples at least 3 new communication skills that they can apply to their everyday lives.
But don't worry, I had to resubmit my thing as well because at the beginning I was kind of like more broad, and I just well, it's kind of short. Like I kind of like did everything kind of short. I didn't make things like really like detailed. And so she was like, this is a good start, but you can like be more detailed in all of the different areas. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I just had to add like more detail. Actually, that's the thing I'm waiting. I think that's the thing I'm waiting to get back from her. But yeah. I just used the sample. As soon as I used the like sample that she had in the resources, I think that helped me a lot to be able to like be like, oh, okay, this is where I can add like the categories, like subcategories and things like that. Like that was really helpful.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So is there any, I'm trying to pull up the principles of ethics that we went over for one of the readings. Was there any that you guys thought might be hard to, or like, I guess not follow, but like any that would probably be a little hard when, depending on your topics through the workshop? Are you guys? I know that, Terry, you said you're probably going to be teaching Friends, so I don't know if anyone would have any different to say about anything that might cause any, I don't know if it makes any sense, but I have to pull these
Yeah.
up. So there's one that I was thinking of specifically. Let's see.
I don't know. I think I really liked, I don't know if you guys got into that handout, or not the handout, the reading that was by Doherty, and it was like the 5 levels of like a spectrum from education to therapy. I liked how it kind of defined like what level each thing was at, and like what a setting might look like at each level. And so I was just thinking that my workshop kind of has 2 parts. Like the first part talks about emotion and money. So it's kind of like touching on like communication in marriage and what your relationship is like. And then the second part is more technical, like let's talk about how to budget and the good principles in money, stuff like that. So the second part, it seems like really okay to kind of dip into the higher level where it's like, yeah, we're going to work with personal examples, and it's going to be really specific to each person. But then the first part is like, you kind of have to be more careful, where you don't want people saying, well, the other day my husband said this to me, so what did he do wrong? You know? And so I don't know how that ties into the ethics, but I was just thinking that, well, weren't there, now I can't remember, weren't there some ethical principles that we're talking about? I feel like there was something that touched on like respecting both.
Yeah, so
Or-
one that really stuck out to me, and it says, it's the third one, it says, I will respect cultural beliefs, background, and differences, and engage in practice that is sensitive to the diversity of child rearing values and goals.
Okay, yeah.
So kind of similar to like what I was thinking was more like, oh, what I want to teach may not be something someone wants to do, kind of thing. So how, as a teacher, how, or like presenter, how can I be supportive of other ideas when I'm giving my, because I feel like for me, effective communication skills, I'm choosing John Lunn, Chapman, and Gottman, and I'm like, some people may not even go to them for communication skills. Like some people may have a totally different idea of communication, and so really, I have to be open to any other differences in opinions that I might not foresee coming. Because I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people who really know their stuff, and I'm just going off of the stuff that I picked out for this particular topic. So I'm like, well, this can be kind of hard just because, yeah, especially if you are kind of targeting lots of different diverse backgrounds, I feel like this can come up a lot, and it might be a little hard.
Well, and that's how you address it too. With your workshop, you just say, okay, that's how you introduce, hey, I know there's so many, great and effective ways of communication. This workshop is only going to focus on the theories of these 3 individuals and give advice from that. And, and you just kind of present it that way and be like, I know there's so many great things, but this is what we'll be focusing on and learning from. And it's just like being like a regular teacher, like even like in school, teaching any subject at all. There's going to be like kids who don't listen or who do listen or who, think they know more than you or whatever. But you just say, well, this is what we're focusing on. And so if this is what we're focusing on, let's go from there. And so I don't know. I wouldn't be too worried about that if I was you. I would just be like, oh, thank you so much for that suggestion. Like if something does come up, be like, thank you so much for that. I didn't even look into that, but I could take time to look at that at a different time. But we could also move on to Gottman's theories or, whatever. And you just kind of push it along and just be like, thank you for that suggestion. So that's what I would do, because I'd be like, you know what? I haven't even looked into that. The only people I looked at for this curriculum were these 3, people. So.
Right.
That's what I would do. But the principle that stood out to me was, I will advocate for children and youth and their best interest at the same time that we work with the parents and other family members. And I think that one is huge in everything that we'll be doing, because especially for me, like when I think about like where I want my future to go with this major. Eventually, I would like to be a family therapist, and you're going to be dealing a lot with children and youth. I feel like, well, at least that's kind of the area that I want to focus on. And so, I think it would be helpful to be able to really work with the children's interests. And what stands out to me with that is like children with divorce parents, and how I feel like so often, because this is, and I think it's maybe because it's kind of what's happening with my brother right now, but so often the parents just take things out like on each other and like on the kids, and they really don't do what's best for the kids. And so, oh, well, you're not going to see your dad this weekend, because that's the mom, she's being spiteful, or you're not going to see your mom, and because they're kind of being spiteful. And so it's actually way worse for the kids, and they are not putting their children's best interests first. And I think parents kind of get caught up in that. And so I think like when you are like being a counselor, or you're being a life coach, or different things like that, you can really bring the best interest of the children forward and try to help parents see that. So that was just the principle that really stood out to me in reading over the different ones.
So it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I worked at a counseling. So I work for Wasatch Mental Health now, and I'm over kind of a small counseling clinic. And I worked with a previous counseling clinic, and I talked to one of the therapists a lot who sees children, and he says that's one of the toughest things to do, is to get the kids or get the parents to be on board with what is like doing the best for the kids, because most of the time the parents are, like you said, spiteful, or they're just worried about certain things, and they forget all about like the children's development and how it's affecting the children. So I think that it's interesting to kind of see it and see how it plays, and how often you see that as like a professional, because he says that that's mostly the problem all the time when he has a
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of why it stood out to me, because I feel like that's always happening. And people, like you said, they just like kind of forget about it, and it's a major problem. So that's cool that you work for them, and you get to have some hands-on experience already. That's cool.
Yeah.
I was thinking when I was reading the ethical principles, and this is just like a technical question, but did I miss somewhere? Is there like a hierarchy of like which principles are more important than the other? Because I was thinking like with that topic especially, it's like if you're trying to respect both the mother and the father and their wishes and what they think is best for their child, but at the same time, their best interests aren't actually in the best interest of the child, which one do you ignore?
So there was one thing we learned. Let's see. Do you guys remember that article that said, what was it? It was like, it was comparing the difference between following just like the mandatory ethical principles and then doing what was the word? Like, I can't remember, but it was like it was comparing between like a provider, or like someone who went and just did the mandatory thing, while someone who went out like above and beyond and did more to help the family get resources and stuff like that.
Shoot, I don't remember that.
I might not like be explaining it super well, but that's kind of how it stuck out to me. I think it was that same week that we did professional ethics and practice. Let's see if I can find it. But I thought about that when you asked your question, because I think that sometimes like it's hard to respect both parents, but at the same time, it's like you might not have to come out and say something to the parent like, oh, I agree with this, but really all you can do is just give them resources. And so like you might not have to, I don't know, I just feel like maybe you don't have to like straight up say something like, oh, the dad's not right, or the mom's not doing the best thing, so I'm going to agree with you. Instead, you kind of give them resources or ways to help them figure that out themselves, which I think might be like the best thing to do, just because you're kind of in the middle in this situation.
Right.
But and
then it's obvious in situations where it's like health and safety. Like,
right.
I mean, I'm sure abuse supersedes being respectful. If a mom or dad is abusing their child, it's kind of like, well, I don't actually care about you as much as I care about your child at this moment. But I just thought in like the minor situations where it's like, this is a tough call, that helps. You don't actually have to call someone out as being right or wrong, but just give them resources.
Yeah, you want to try to help them like change their like way of life or whatever. And like, because that's the thing, as soon as you say to someone like, oh, you're wrong, or nope, that you're not doing that right, they're going to get defensive. And a lot of the times, especially if you do that in therapy, those people aren't going to come back. They're not going to come back because they don't want to feel that way. And so that's why it's like, it's, you have to be like super careful that you're not being like, oh, well, that was totally wrong what you did, like in certain things, but just kind of be like, Itzel, I always feel like I say your name wrong, but said, just give them the resources, because you can't force anyone to change, but you can guide people to like a change and hope that they choose to make that change.
And it's kind of like the case study that we did about the woman who there was a bit of concern that she was being abused at home by her husband. And it was like, how would you approach that? Like, you can't just go up and say, hey, are you being abused, kind of thing. It's kind of like, you have to, it's like something you have to really, really think about and like bring about in a way that doesn't offend them, doesn't scare them, doesn't make them want to never come back. So I think it's just kind of letting them know what their resources are. And like in a situation with like the case study, I would even say like not particularly for her, but maybe just make like an announcement during one of the classes about different resources so it's not super obvious, or just different things that you can do. But yeah, with therapy, it is kind of hard. You see lots of
gray area.
Yeah.
Well, that covers my questions that I had on this block.
Okay. How long does our meeting need to be for? An hour or 30 minutes?
30 minutes.
Okay. So we have a couple more, but so I can ask the question. What about the question, how is your value system likely to influence you as you teach? Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting, because there's going to probably be a lot of the times where my values don't line up. Like, what if I am, in counseling, and even like a gay or lesbian couple comes to me for counseling? Like, I don't think that, I don't necessarily support that lifestyle, but I'm not going to turn them away and be like, okay, well, you guys are gay. Yeah, I'm not helping you. Do you know what I mean? You can still give them resources and still give families help when they're asking for it. I don't think you should ever turn anyone away because your values don't line up with theirs. Because even bringing that to a gospel point of view, Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ wouldn't do that. Like, they wouldn't turn them away. They would try to help them. And not that I would say like, oh, I'm going to push my values on you, but I am going to give them other things that could help their family or their situation. And so that's just kind of my thought about like the value system. I don't think I would ever be like, no, not helping you. Sorry. But I don't know. Maybe we should be like that with certain things. I don't know. What do you guys think?
So I had an experience so there's this therapist that I used to work with who had a lot of clients that were brought by parents who wanted basically like a fix because there was a same-sex attraction or kind of more of like leaning towards a transgender kind of thing. And I remember being like pretty confused about like how I would deal with a situation like that, because it's like, well, therapists aren't, meant to fix someone. Like, especially like if you go into like social work is so broad and so like kind of accepting, and it just kind of, I don't know, it's just very interesting because it's very like free. And so someone can't come to you and you can't tell them, oh, well, what you're doing is wrong, because that's based on your values, not theirs. And so for me, it was really hard, but the therapist told me that basically you don't have to like impose any values. Basically, you just find the truth that they think, like, basically, like, I don't know how he explained it, but he said like you find what they believe to be right and true, and that's what you push them towards. And it doesn't have to have any religion, but basically you're just helping them be a better person, because really that's all that's going to matter, like right. What person they are. And that might not necessarily fix them according to their parents who are wanting to fix them, but it's still, you know what I mean? It helps them cope with the things they're going through and helps them deal with it in a positive and safe way. Yeah. And that really stuck out to me. And then I also had another therapist tell me that she had a client who was living a completely like different lifestyle than she was, and it was obvious, like you can tell. And she's like, I never tell my clients that I'm LDS. I never go about that. She's like, but when I ended up finishing with her treatment, she looked at me and she said, you're LDS, right? She's like, yeah. She's like, well, thank you for not judging me. She said, because I knew you were different, and I knew that a lot of times you probably wouldn't agree with what I was doing, but you never thought to judge me, and you always really, really gave me the best advice, and that will forever like change my life. And I thought about that, and I'm like, sometimes I think too much about like my values when I don't think about how it can just influence others by just kind of being silently, not silently, but I'm like, you don't have to like specifically voice your values. You just like what you are and how you present yourself and how you treat others will really just go a long way. And that's all they could need at the time. Like, you don't have to change someone's perspective or anything. So I don't know. That's just kind of what I thought about when I read through that question too.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Sorry, go ahead, Terry.
Oh, that's okay. That question just made me think how probably my value system would affect the way I interact with people, just because I have the gift of the Holy Ghost, and I'm really glad because he gives direction when I lack. That's what I thought of. I don't know. I didn't really think about like opposing values with other people. I just thought, okay, well, I'm really glad that I have this, because if anything, that'll tell me where to go.
Yeah. Nope, that makes sense. Okay, you guys have any more questions? Any other things that we wanted to go over? I'm good. It's up to you guys.
Yeah, I think I'm good too.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Well, good luck with your workshops. So Itzel, you'll post this or whatever?
Yep, I will post it.
Yay, thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Thanks. See you guys.
Hey, thanks for meeting early. So hopefully we could all enjoy the weekend.
Yeah. Thanks. We'll see ya.
Bye.
Okay.